Peace and blessings, Akashic Living family. Always good to connect. Always good to be here. So we got a special one today. This ain't like the normal one. Not to say that there's anything as normal, but we got a super special show today. I'm excited to have a guest here that's going to help us level up in terms of our mindset. Our mindset. So we're going to talk about making our future dream a present fact with none other than the lovely Miss Dolly Cina. Dolly is here. She is, just to give you some background about her, Dolly is the owner and the CEO of Blue Limits Academy. She's also a consultant with Proctor Gallagher Institute. If the name Proctor sounds familiar, you got it right. That's Bob Proctor, uh, most famously known for being a part of the movie The Secret. In addition, Dolly is the vice president and global master coach for Napoleon Hill Institute. So understand, we're throwing out some big names. She's affiliated with some very successful programs. She's a very successful person. We're glad to have her here to be able to share some words of wisdom about making our future dreams our present fact. So give it up for none other than the Miss Dolly Cina. Got some hand claps for you. Dolly, what's happening with you? I think you got you on mute.
There we go. Thank you. What an honor it is to be here with you. I have to say, the moment that I met you, I guess not guess, we both have to agree. I recognized you right away. It was our energy.
Absolutely.
Um, and this was when it was interesting too, when our fellow soul that we know, Kathy, who had mentioned, that she had done a podcast, and I had been incredibly busy like you, but there was something that kept pulling to say, I'd really like to do that. And it was the moment that I met you here, I realized, oh, now I know why. It's everything you're seeking truly is seeking you. So thank you
Dope.
for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your sacred yes, for for joining the conversation. We're doing this, we're building this one conversation at a time, right? And with the intention of allowing people and supporting people to awaken to the sound of their soul. So we're person that's you to have such, great insight and experience in terms of helping people with a mindset, adopting a mindset, one in which we can reclaim and remember who we are and
Mm.
create the world that we live in. I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to be able to, create a space for you to be able to share, your information. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. So let's jump right into it. We talked offline, I guess, a few days ago. We talked about, just kind of like your story and your background, working with Bob Proctor. You shared, kind of your journey before working with Bob Proctor, and then how, being able to read, I think it was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, how the type of education, self-education that you went through allowed you to kind of really expand your awareness and really jump into that flow of creating the life you want to live. Can you talk about just your background and your story and share it for those who may not be familiar with it?
Absolutely. Thank you. And the story comes out differently each time.
That's
So
great.
it's a lot of fun for me to share it
I
because I
love it.
never know, for me, my journey began 6 years ago, and I'd hit rock bottom, and so there was no more fight left in me, and so
Mm,
I was very open, and I had hit that place where I had said to God, you know, that I was willing to do anything. It was
mm,
really that rock bottom,
mhm,
and so that's where Bob Proctor came in for me, and your audience may be able to relate, when you have those certain nudges from the universe, when you have messages or, some people with numbers or, when a video shows up, this is the case for me. I had never listened to personal development, nothing actually, nothing at all. And so for Bob Proctor to come up on a recommended feed, I realized that was by design. Our
mm,
thoughts truly do send out signals, and our feelings for me at that moment drew in the event, and I was ready to receive.
mm.
So the moment I felt his energy, I'm sure I'd heard his words before, just, said differently, but it was the energy behind it. I
Yeah.
didn't know it then, but it was the energy. He was in alignment. So he had actually, I could feel, you see, that he had done the work.
Mhm,
I didn't know it then, and he had reached me. And what he had said was, And many people that know Bob Proctor, they'll recognize this. And he said, if I want to be free, I have to be me, not
Mm,
the me that my spouse thinks I should be, not the me that my kids think I should be, and not the me that you think I should be. If
mm.
I want to be free, I have to know me.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't said that quote in so long. I have to be free, so I better know me. And that goes back to what you said, which was remember, and it was we do this to know thyself. Remember why
Mm,
we do this. We do this to remember. So that power I just want to share with you. I mean, being at rock bottom, knowing nothing and having that signal sent out that way, how powerful that is.
mhm.
Right. Were you going to say something?
No, no, I'm just doing. I'm riding along with you. That's beautiful.
Okay.
I'm stuck on the quote. If I want to be free, I gotta be me.
Right.
Let's
I better
go.
know who, right. And the punchline was, so I better know who me is.
Mm,
So those that follow Bob Proctor would also know that he studied from Earl Nightingale, and Earl Nightingale had said and defined what success was, and it's the
mhm,
progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So, right, so when I didn't even know what that meant. That was too fancy for me back then.
mhm,
And Bob would translate. He would say, "This is about who you become. It's about the journey. It's about the adventures." Now, this is now my language a little bit too, but that's how I heard it because the destination you see is guaranteed.
come on now.
Right? If you just set the GPS, you have faith, you let go, let God, you surrender, and there you go. Now it's time to play, player one.
Mm,
And it was so powerful when you're reminded of this truth, you see, because we're programmed to believe we have to have it in order to feel. And this goes back to what we're going to talk about, right? Feeling is the secret. And it's really not a secret, but people just don't understand it. Especially with the law of attraction, it's very woo-woo. Like I
mhm,
remember telling people about Bob Proctor, they're like, "Oh, the guy on The Secret." And I could feel it, and then it would trigger my insecurities, which is a paradigm. It's just a program. I don't have that. I mean, I've shifted this because I've been taught by those that have walked the walk. This is
mhm,
key. You see, I've also learned from mentors that there's no spiritual bypassing, and you and I talked about this.
mhm.
You have got to feel it to heal it. Everyone must enter the cave they fear to enter, right?
That's
Because
right.
you end up remembering that you're the light and you're the leader. And that's why, too, this was something I had written down 6 years ago. So, where my journey began, which was, well, first I knew I wanted to meet the man. Because as soon as I saw that one video, I watched every video he had ever created on YouTube. I mean, all the way down the line. And I didn't realize this. And I'm sure a lot of audience members can relate. First, then I started to know all kinds of teachers, all kinds of other teachers started opening up
Mhm,
for me. Spirituality was a lot further away though. Had it been introduced, I may not have been ready. This is why those that can translate this information, it's really key that you stand in your greatness and just I
mhm.
felt less brown. Because those are his actually, we're gonna see him in New York at the end of April,
That's
which is
beautiful.
really cool. Yeah. And I don't say this to you, right, except to share with everyone that if you remember what I said when we first started out this call, I was broken, broken. I
Mm,
knew that I was going to be a mother of two, and I was going to be a single mom of two, and I had no money. I mean, and the way in which that I was programmed, my mindset was I had quoted car insurance, and no disrespect at all, but now there's Siri that can do this job, right? But that's what I would do is the mundane of just repeating the same thing over and over again. And it was 10 hours a day. I had no idea how I was going to take my kids to and from school and how I was going to afford anything.
mhm.
And so for others to have done the work, who have walked this walk, to be able to shine that light for me to see, it's like being that lighthouse. That's who Bob was for me. And for
Mhm,
Bob Proctor, it was Earl Nightingale. From Earl Nightingale, it was Napoleon Hill, and then to Andrew Carnegie. And then we can go deeper, Robert Collier. It just keeps
mm,
going, and then it all goes back to the truth.
mm, mm.
It all goes back to that. And it's, the keys to the kingdom are within you. It's in your heart. It's going back home and remembering who we are and how we heard the information and how we were able to, you know, to remember this are by those that have again walked the walk for us. And so uh, it was mind-blowing for me to ever think that someone like me could ever even be where I'm at today, and it doesn't have anything to do with money. At first, of course it was, because I was in survival,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and let me know if I'm going too long.
No, no, keep talking. That's why you're here. We're here to hear you diffuse this wisdom. We need to hear this. This is beautiful.
Okay, great. Thank you. Even then, not knowing anything, Bob had said, if you could have him be and do, you can have him be and do whatever it is that you desire. So I thought, okay. And I'd been shifting just by watching all the free, information on YouTube. Things were happening inside of me, but I had no one to talk to, because anyone I talked to, they would roll their eyes, slurs. And I thought, if anyone finds out what I'm doing, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to put me in a silent asylum. They're going to take my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Was terrifying for me. And so I hit it, and I studied privately every day. It's like the wax on, wax off, wax on, not even knowing what I was doing, you see? So this is
Mm-hmm.
another thing I want the audience or the listeners to really feel into. And that's, you might feel like you're doing all these things and nothing's happening. But remember, these are God's laws, universal laws. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For what you put out, you will get back. As you sow, so shall you reap. And so
Right.
all the work you're putting in with that unwavering faith, with the seed that's planted, with the goal that you've set. Goal is just I almost want to say like a left brain thing to say.
Mm.
Like I say left brain just because it's like an organization. It's just the way where you could also say it another way. But it's true. When you set a goal, when you set the GPS, when you see it from the end and you feel the vibration, it's being in that frequency, it's being on that multidimensional reality. And the key in this too is by surrounding yourself with those that have done this. That's a
Mm-hmm.
quote that I have repeated ever since I met Andrea King. And
Mm-hmm.
that was her. She would say, surround yourself with the dreamers.
Come on now.
And it's true, because you see, we're all going to be the ones that are considered crazy, you see. So was Marconi, if you remember, the one that created radio, that talked about radio waves.
Your waves.
He
Mm-hmm.
was he was in an insane asylum. His friends actually got him locked up. Right? I mean, the stories of those that have led and that have done, what people would say are just extraordinary, are those that have faced those fears. And I had written down, for me, my journey is different. So for you all, it might be different too. For some, it's mansions and, whatever, live in the jungle. It doesn't matter. You're
Mm-hmm.
here to experience a human experience as spirit. It's the experience we're seeking. It goes back to Earl Nightingale. It's the progressive realization. It's the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It's being player one, being the hero and feeling the music up and down, as above, so below. So when you feel those downs, you have to know that the roots are going so deep so that you can shoot even higher.
That's right.
Right? So when you are in the lows, and so this is where, like, this is something that I say, and this was something that was being reminded to me, because I would have the doubt and worries. Because I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, Bob Proctor says I can have whatever it is that I desire. All right, fine. I want to meet him. And then he said,
Mm.
oh, there was an inner circle. And I thought, I don't even know what that is, but that sounds really cool. Inner circle. What's that? And I thought that was like for the rich, like only for like secret societies or something. And I thought, and I said this to God. I said, if you will show me,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell them it was you. Like that's all I knew. I just thought, because I was also too in that moment, it was Bob would teach and he would say, that we were worthy to receive. And I would, yes, it was money for me. I had a money paradigm. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel that I was worthy of anything, and
Mm-hmm.
gosh forbid, I'd never applied for a leadership position. I'd always worked at it was right at the beginning of every job. Never would I apply for a promotion. So, okay, fast forwarding. I wrote down that I was going to meet with Bob Proctor, and there was a program called The Matrix, and I made a committed decision, and I knew that I had a burning desire to meet him. I knew that there was gonna be something there, and I even staked it once I discovered what the investment was. And this might activate some people here at this part,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good. Lean into that, by the way.
Absolutely.
Right, and lean into that, because it triggered me, and it was once I discovered the investment, I said, "There's gonna be a spaceship that picks me up for that ticket price, because no one pays this kind of money. This is crazy. Are you nuts? I didn't have that." But there was a feeling, you see, and it doesn't matter if it was money, it was a fear that I was meant to face, so that I
Right.
could go through the illusion and know that I created it. right? Everything in our lives is a co-creation of, it's a manifestation, right, of everything that we imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why too it's important in who you plug into, because your self-talk is key, and who you surround yourself with when the paradigms, well, I'll say, the energy is really low, that's energy, so you fall into that, you see. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's key to elevate and plug into channels like yours and listen to others that have walked this journey, and through storytelling, it helps collapse time, especially when you all lean in with your heart. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
your head, it's going to try to, your ego is going to try to tell you, because it doesn't compute or recognize what I'm trying to say if you've never done it before.
That's
It's
right.
trying, and then it says, Mayday, that's not real. But if you drop
Mm.
it to your heart, you'll actually elevate to a higher frequency, because you'll be inspired, which
Mm.
then translates to being in spirit. Then you can really see. And then you go, I'm dreaming. I can see what I can do. This is what I did. I was like, okay, I want to see Bob. I want to meet him. And I didn't know why. And I was like, oh, there must be a spaceship. Why? Because it made me feel good to say it. It made me feel
Mm.
really good, because I was scared. Because there was
Yeah.
another story. There was two stories I could tell. There was the story that he was a scammer, and he was gonna, I was always told that I was gullible and I always reacted things too fast. And so there was this one story that he was gonna scam me of all this money, and I was gonna go to jail, and I was gonna lose my kids, or I could tell this story. And this story was just as powerful as this one.
That's right.
Right?
That's
But
right.
then you have the free will to choose, because it's faith and fear. And Bob would always say, they both demand that you believe in something you can't see,
That's
right?
right.
So you choose faith. That's what I did. Why? Because I plugged in hard. I was plugged in, listening over to stories. I was on YouTube, listening to other people that had done what I was about to go and do. And I just held on to that, wouldn't listen to anything else. And then Bob would say, don't tell anyone what you're doing. And I thought, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Is he trying to scam me, right? Don't tell anyone. I was like, no, he's telling me that because he wants me to shut that shit down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that is, you want to outwit the devil,
That's right.
because it's coming. Once you're about to step out into the unknown. So that's what I did. I flew
Mm.
to Toronto. I met with Bob Proctor. I spent 6 days at the program called The Matrix. And then he said, if you'd like to do what I do, he said, I could teach you. And
Mm.
I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. And then he said, okay, this is going to be the price. And then Mayday, Mayday. And then again, I was like, are you nuts? Are you nuts? I can't just took everything to be here. And what people, it's like, oh gosh, you don't even, it was just, I will actually say it, 6 days, $15,500 is what the
Mm-hmm.
investment was. Okay. Now he's saying I have to do it again. I'm going,
Yeah.
what? Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying this is the fear that you will have to face. It was just the one that I was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had
Mm-hmm.
done that I didn't realize later was that I put so much importance on money that when I made the exchange, who was I saying was worthy?
Mm.
Me. I didn't
That's
know that
right.
until later, right? So then I decided to become a consultant. I made a committed decision. There was another burning desire. And I burned all the ships behind me. I did
Mm.
exactly what the Think and Grow Rich book talks about. And, fast forwarding to today, just in the speed, the Napoleon Hill Institute is actually brand new. Um, there was a soft launch done on the 11th of January of this year. And to be where I am, even like just feeling into that and just being so grateful
Mm.
and saying, this is what I wrote down 6 years ago, but I had no idea how it was going to manifest. People often say, well, how? How am I going to get there? How? You see, you're not going to know the how. It would be boring if you did. If you knew the whole way, it would be boring. You
Correct.
see, right? You want the duality, the contrast. That's there for a reason, you see. It's so that we can experience life, because I heard this, recently, and I don't remember who said it, but it was powerful. And he said, on a heartbeat, you see that it goes up and down and up and down. They say, I just want to be in the middle, God, the up and down, I'm tired of it. And he says, you don't want to be in the middle. That's flatline. You're dead.
That's right.
Right. And I'm like, whoa, that hit me. And I thought, because sometimes too, for me, especially when you're on this journey of growth, is it can feel, and that's why too, it's remembering your breath.
Mm-hmm.
breathing through those times and feeling all of it, feeling the fear of all of this and saying and remembering who I am,
Mm,
remembering who you are, which is why we do this. We hear the stories, which collapses time. It allows us to lean in, exercise our higher mental faculties. These were all the things that all these leaders taught me. I just didn't know it along the way, because sure, financially, people might look at me and say, "Oh yeah, you've made it." Compared to what? Compared to who? People don't see behind the scenes. Also, all the different things that happen, all the
mm,
work that gets put in. You earn it, and it's fun. It really is, and so, reading all this material, it allows us to those dreams when we write, journal, and do those things that we encourage our listeners to do. We're encouraging it because 'cause you're sharing the good news. We're telling you, "Hey, it really worked for me. Oh my god," and my enthusiasm, it explodes if I,
mm.
like, because I get so just really, really joyful to share it with everyone, and so being a mother of 2, I am a single mom of 2. I just learned recently from Napoleon Hill's grandson, which I didn't even know he had, that a single mom, for those that are out there, this is if there's nothing else that you take away, is I used to use that as like an excuse, not, like it was like a victim, I would
Mhm,
say, "I'm a single mom of 2, I can't do as much. I'm a single mom of 2, people don't understand." And I would do that was in the background until JB Hill took that paradigm, the 2 stories I could tell, and he shifted it. And he said, "A mother of 2, a single mom of 2," and that message must have been, that was what I needed to hear, you see. But I would have never heard it had I not done the journey that I have. And
mhm,
imagine where I would be when I was at rock bottom, right? And he says, the superpower that a single mom of 2 have, which is one of the most powerful, is what's called the iron will.
mm,
And that's it, and I just remember I just bawled my eyes out, and I thought and I felt the shift. I could feel the cells of recognition inside of me that said, "Do you remember who you are now?" And it
mm,
was it just breathing that in. And I will say though, once you do come to a new frequency, when you have embodied this new self-image, you'll hear people say the imposter syndrome, or, and the truth is, we all go through it. We all do. And Maya Angelou talked about that too. I loved what, or like others that have beautiful stories of when they won awards or whatever, and they go, "When are people gonna find out the truth?" Like, "When's the rug gonna be pulled out from underneath me that I'm not really maybe these things that people." We're all sinners, we all and it's what we learn from it. It's how we respond to it versus reacting and holding on to past stories that just keep us stuck in the past, and then, and that's we've heard that, right? Insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different results. And so, um, it is a recent a recent space for me. And really, titles too, I would say it felt like more of like organizing kind of the spaces and how to okay, this is how I really want to say it, the new world.
mm,
I wanted to surround myself with leaders of the new world. And one of the things I'd written down was I want to be in the front row of that movie.
mm.
I want to feel the intensity, in that moment where, Rocky is about to fight, or, what's another really good one? Top Gun,
Yeah,
or like when, it's that moment where the hero remembers, I'm the hero.
that's
It's,
right.
and they go into action after just being beat down. I mean, like, and you just and you're just rooting for them. So sure, that's my story too, but I love watching. So for me, I don't think that what we do is true and what we are learning is true. I know it is.
Mm,
Absolutely have a knowing, and you, Andre, would be one. I mean, you're a manifestation for me right out of the page too, to be able to sit with you here today and share this with you. What an honor. I'm just grateful. Thank you.
thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, and I just gotta say, wow. Wow, the gems that were dropped, that you just dropped, absolutely amazing. Just hearing your story, um, coming from your heart space, sharing from your heart, for me, it just gave me a clear line of sight into my journey. Right, we're all mirrors of one another. Right, and I love how you said you don't have to know how. Right, and that goes back to what I heard with Bob Proctor. I always remember him saying, "Just jump." You'll grow wings on the way, along the way, right? And we sometimes we get in our ego and say, hey, we have to figure out, point A to point B. No, take that burning desire, as you talked about before, that burning desire, that passion that you have, that willingness to want to change more than you want to breathe, right? That deep burning desire, allow that to carry you to point A, and the point B, knowing that everything is always working for your good, and go with it. I mean, your story is a perfect example, because at the end of the day, I think what we encounter is our own limited beliefs. That's what we run up against. It's the paradigm that we created. And, to your point earlier with the imposter syndrome, I think it's, when you embrace a new paradigm, you walk into a new paradigm, but the old is still has vestiges of it, right? And it's falling away. And you look back at the old, but not necessarily recognizing who you truly are in this new season of life, right? I don't think the butterfly would recognize the caterpillar, maybe not even the chrysalis, right? So it's just kind of like the different stages of growth and development and unfolding, but just always having that default in the back of our mind, that knowingness that who we are is greater than any type of title or role or position that can be conferred upon us, or we can confer upon ourselves. So thank you for them gems, because that was absolutely amazing. I want to go back because you said a couple of things and it would be easy to gloss over, but got to be called out. One, you talked about being front row with leaders of the world. From our conversation, I understand some of the people that you work with. Can you share? You dropped her name previously. You said Andrea King, but I don't think people know who she is, and the conversations that she's a part of. So can you kind of give a little bit more of context to who you work with and some of that
Sure,
information?
absolutely. Well, one of the what I love about Andrea King is she embodies all of this and really truly does become that light worker,
Hmm.
some might say is the foofy way to say it. Yet you would never know who's out there, being that light for others and being, like if you remember what I said to God, just show me. I'm willing to go down any rabbit hole. I will
Hmm.
go to any castle or cave or jungle. Trust me when we could do hours of podcasts of different leaders that I've met with and different things I've seen, and no one would believe it. No one would believe it unless they came with me. So I do have people that have come, actually, many, even with the meeting of, Andrea King, uh, in how I met her. It's again that witness to testify, because my gosh, who would believe me? Someone
Hmm.
like me, a woman 6 years ago, where I was then, and now being able to, you know, to be in the movie. You see, this is how it's the honor to be able to see that the true work that's being done behind the scenes, and what it takes to do, what leaders do, because we look and we think you were born that way. I used to be so mad at God, because I'd be like, you birthed me, like I came here with nothing, no talents, I can't finish anything, like why do you bless these others and not me? And what's so great about them and not me? And I didn't realize that it was something that we earned. It was something that they had earned and it's just for me with her, Andrea King, what's wonderful is in how our story is mind-blowing. We've shared it on different webinars and podcasts, too, and it's truly goes to what you're seeking is seeking you. I had I had been with a very successful coaching business, in a collaboration with another business partner, and I had made a very, at the time, a very scary big decision, because I'd put, my business on hold so that, we could collectively, I was very mission driven and wanted to see, what was possible. And it was fantastic, all the wonderful things that I had learned. It was time though for me, to step back in to what I loved doing. And I loved doing this too. Um, and so it was very scary though. And I was traveling to Costa Rica, uh, right. And to a healing retreat. And we have many people that we know
Yeah.
mutually that you had out here on this podcast,
Yep.
uh, that we have great stories, by the way, with them too. And so I had flown in. I didn't know that the Kings were going to be there. I know that you also got to meet them too.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, and So we had a dinner, and in at that dinner that we had, there was 6 women, and there was a language, we were just talking, and I was very much in the energy. It's a healing retreat, and so it
Hmm.
was the energy, it was just magnificent. And she looked at me and said, "You study Neville Goddard." That's exactly what she said,
Wow.
and I remember her voice and the energy that came behind it, and I thought, "Oh," right, because by then I did know who she was,
Hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife, and I said, "I do study Neville," and I thought, "You know Neville?" And she said, "Yes," and she said, "Are you a Bob Proctor coach?" And I said, "I am," and she goes, "I've been looking for a Bob Proctor coach," and I thought, "Whoa," and then I told her, when we started working together, I said, I've been looking for," I said, "I had written down that I wanted to work with Yodas." She
Mm.
goes, "You gotta be kidding me. I love Yoda." And I was like, "You do?" And it's these, you can't make this stuff up, you see, because I'd always had a connection with Martin Luther King, and that's just another story too.
Hmm.
But then to be where I'm at because of things I'd written down, you see. You have to remember, like, every it's what you believe, and you are the director, the producer, and the main character. Don't
Come on
forget.
now.
Right, and the main character part is you gotta feel it, not you don't wanna do it from the sidelines. Sidelines, you're just watching other people's stories. When you commit and say, "I'm all in,"
That's right.
and you burn it all the ship, no more plan B. There is
Hmm.
no plan B, there's just plan A. Then the universe opens up everything because it's the vibration that it responds to.
That's
You know,
right.
that's and Bob would always say the secret, didn't give away the secret because it talked about the law of attraction, and it does talk about the vibration. But vibration is the primary law to attraction. Oops. So I think there you go. I thought I lost you for a minute.
Good.
And so it is the vibration in which that we're in that allows us to be on that frequency. And even with everyone that's here, allow yourself to be present to the frequency that you're in even now, because
Hmm.
this is why I love to surround myself, with people like you, Andre. Like it's your energy that I get to be in. It's the sacred space that you create, that you allow me to just feel, rested, and it feels like home. And so again, that's why I'm just so grateful that you do what you do, because you've done a lot of work to be where you're at. So thank you. So yes,
Uh,
I did that answer your question?
1,000%. 1,000%. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Being able to manifest, take a future dream and turn it into a present fact that you are there with the kings as they have some important conversations that impact and have ramifications across the entire world. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And it's not, something that's so esoteric and out of this world that is limited to only a handful of people. No, this is the life that's designed for everyone, that everyone can have, can create this type of life. But once again, to your point, I love how you framed it, that in order to really become a master of the manifestation, it requires understanding, one, that these universal laws are, they're impersonal, right? They're impersonal laws, one. But two, before that, we are all vibrational beings. And I love how you called that out, because at times when we're in a state where we're not aware of how we're feeling, we're always creating. We're always
Right.
creating based on our vibration and the frequencies that we're tapping into. So for you to call that out and say, you know what, the fundamental understanding is that we are vibrating constantly, and we're
Mhm.
always radiating qualities based off of our frequency and our vibration. And because you did the work to become more aware and expand your awareness of all the vibrations that are out there, the experiences that are out there, you began to co-create a life that was no longer a dream, but it was more of an intentional co-creation with the presence of God that is always there and never in absence, as Reverend Beckwith says. So that was absolutely spectacular story, because I think it was able to summarize the foundational concepts of universal law and manifestation, how to use it in a way where you're developing and tapping into, as you said earlier, your true self. Your true self. It goes back to it. I love how Reverend Michael Beckwith says, if you don't do you, you won't get done. Right? There's no more sitting on the sidelines trying to do you. You got to be willing to jump into this thing, you
Yeah.
know, head first, right? And go in all out and play all out and play all
Yeah.
out. But what I'm finding throughout the journey is that when you do that, and I love Paulo Coelho says the universe is conspiring. The universe conspires. It meets us where we are. It's always there, but the only thing that blocks us is our limited thinking, and just being able to change our mind, doing the work
Mm.
to change our mind. There was an interesting workshop that happened last week. I believe it was Lisa Nichols. She was talking about reframing, right? And giving a tool on how to reframe and how important it is because it shifts your energy, right? And I didn't
Right.
know this before going into the webinar. So I'm listening, and she talks about the equation E plus R equals O. And I think it originates from Jack Canfield. And Jack
Okay.
Canfield was saying that an event plus a response equals an outcome.
Mm.
To me, that kind of changed everything because my paradigm before was an event equaled an outcome, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, uh, money dried up equals I'm broke. Right? That in the paranormal paradigm, that's the outcome that's expected. But what we know with the event is that, the event, yeah, we have minimal to some control over. The
Mhm.
outcome we have significant influence over, but the response we have all the control over, right? And so in having that response, that R, taking responsibility for the R and moving from a different mindset, a mindset that's more expansive and has more awareness to it, it allows us to have better outcomes and tell different stories to ourselves. It's so empowering. So I love how you changed your R, right? You understand the E in the beginning was okay. So these things happen, and there was a financial contraction, but the outcome doesn't mean that I have to be broke. The outcome was, you know what? Based on my response, I'm hooking my caboose to somebody else's train track, and I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be successful. So I love it. I love it. You just gave a whole bunch of game, a whole bunch of game, and
Oh,
that's
so did
it's so
you.
necessary. So necessary. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Thank you for
thank
that.
you. Yeah, there's another way too, if I could also say in the translation of this material, you see, like even you repeating back to me what I had said, I hear it differently. It's and like in I think of Wayne Dyer. I'm sure you've heard the quote, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes, because it does.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to what story do you decide to tell? And
Hmm.
and also translators. So all of us individually, each of us have a different way that we translate it. You have your beautiful. So when you repeated it back to me, I received it differently. New cells of recognition that's activating. So then it's like enlightenment. It's like, right. And it's this like it's a feedback. People call it validation or confirmation.
Hmm.
And really it's the ability for all of us to be the mirror for others, because and it's beautiful when you do that, and when you can see the greatness in others, when you see the true essence of who they are. And so and I mean, you do it so beautifully.
Oh,
So
thank you. Like you said, we're just mirrors of one another. So yes, and thank you, and thank you. That's beautiful. One of the segments that I love to do on this show is called the practice, right? Where we all have the understanding that we're practicing something, whether it's fear, doubt, and worry, or it's, meditation, yoga, high-minded conversation, being in the community and seeing ourselves uh, as we truly are, right? So from a person who has, gone and made these transitions and these wonderful strides and have a ton of information to share and is on the front rows with some of the most important leaders in the world, what are some of the things that you have in your practice toolbox that you can share with the audience that can help, expand their awareness and their mindset?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. I remember when, if like I'm often, I think, if I could go back in time and, and tell and say something that might have, I mean, I definitely believe, I know I moved in speed, but that's also too, because I had to borrow the belief at first. I had to borrow the belief of those that had achieved the things that I was, that inspired me to want it. And so what I would say would be for everyone is to trust your intuition and your heart,
Mm,
because you see the answers do lie within you. The answers, you always know what it is. And people often say, well, how do you know if it's intuition or paradigm? And intuition is always first. Anything after that is paradigm. You always know the answer. And that the next piece of this would be writing it down. This is key. I've been reminded by our CEO at Napoleon Hill Institute. Her name is Cleona. And I mentioned her also too because in the short period of time that I've known her, her ability to really embody these higher mental faculties as well. But she said something and it was an instant manifestation, and she said, "Write down what you want." And it was
Mm-hmm.
what Paul would say, right? The second piece was show me, because of the law of cause and effect, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So first step would be, what do you want? And if you don't know what you want, then write down that. I want to
Mm-hmm.
know what I want. I want to know what my desire. I want to know what my purpose is. But if you don't ask, you're never going to receive it.
That's right.
Never. And you have to be willing to take that, because people will say that exercise is too simple, and they won't. They'll say, I'll do it later. No, do it now as we're talking, and watch what happens if you do. Because where I'm at today is not by accident, it's by design, because I was
Mm.
really coachable. When you burn the ships behind you and you've got nothing, my 401k that year, I had invested $60,000. Now, this doesn't compute that's not going to compute. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This was, again, my journey. So lean into your heart. Don't,
Right.
feel the relatability of the fears that you will have to face. But I was really coachable because that's what I did. I was
Mm-hmm.
all the way up against it was right. And so I did it. And by doing it, I can now come back and tell everyone it works, and you can feel that I'm telling you the truth. So that toolbox for me would be, go back to the basics.
Yes.
And go back and write, and that would be the big, and then write it out. You're the director, you're the producer. Write down what you would rather see. And if outside circumstances in your life today have no evidence to say that you'll be able to manifest the things that you desire, lean into dreamers, lean into those that have achieved. This is why plugging into your podcast, coming to the different things that that you have created for others to be a part of. It's key that they come and be in your energy, really. Otherwise, had Bob not done what he had done, had he not made that cheesy video, which I would have called it that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And that wasn't his best work, by the way. I didn't
Mm.
know him from The Secret. That's another thing, by the way, for everyone to know. You do not need to be an expert. That video I saw of him, that was way early before he had a much higher pitched voice. He had
Yeah.
huge glasses, he looked like a used car salesman. That was my judgment. I don't think that I obviously love him dearly. Uh, but so don't be afraid, like, to mess up, and to go out there and be seen, and just always remember that what you had written down, and keep it with you, and remember where you're going, and remember who you are,
Mm.
and what that power that flows to and through you. So that's a lot, but that would be like the power tool I would tell people to pull out.
That's
Your pen.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Listen to your intuition. Write it down. Go back to the basics. Remember. Remember who you are. Remember that. That's powerful. That is powerful. And remembering who you are, as I'm repeating that, I remember a time where I went to me and my wife went to a silent meditation retreat out in California with Reverend Michael Beckwith. It was the
Mhm.
first time we ever went to a meditation retreat, one together, one overall anyway, right? So we didn't know what to expect, but I could tell you, within the first few hours as we're sitting there and we're meditating, everything kind of peeled away, and you get back to remembering the dreams that you had when you were a little kid, like remembering that part of you that before any type of limitation, that infinite possibility, that imagination that a child has. You go all the way back there and you remember, you're like, oh yeah, I always wanted to do that, but you kind of forget. And so for you to say, to be intentional about writing it down, just sitting with yourself and doing the work and say, yeah, this is what I always wanted to do. I may have, took a detour here or there, but it's still havable. And I don't even know if that's a word. Right? But you can still get it. It's just more or less just being cool with sitting down being yourself and doing the work. It's a beautiful thing. But I love how you say listen to your intuition, because all along your intuition is there and it's guiding you. It's the paradigm that will hijack our attention and our awareness and get us to play small or do something that we just think is the logical thing to do. And in many respects, the logic is going to take you down to the house. That's not the way we go. That's not the way we move. So, Dolly, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for it. Thank you so much for it. Well, family, we got a lot of game today. Dolly has opened up the bag and just shared some wisdom and insight that you're not just going to get everywhere. We're truly blessed to have her here on the show to just share with us tools that we can integrate in our practice and our daily life so that we can remember who we are and live the life that we design on our own, as opposed to a prescribed path of just mediocrity or mundane living. Right? We can have the greatness because greatness is who we are. So, Dolly, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your sacred yes. Thank you for being here today and the work that you're doing for those who are here and for those who are yet to come. We give thanks for you. How can the Akashic family stay in contact with you, connect with you, and just keep up to date with you?
Oh, how could you keep up and date with me? I would say I think the best way would be the social media outlet would be on Facebook, which
Okay.
is Master Your Thinking. But otherwise, too, um, yeah, right now it would be the NapoleonHillInstitute.com. But and again, it's just because I like to also say it's like this new starship,
Mm-hmm.
and I want everyone to know this, and this is really key too, that if I could just say this, we do this, like you said, to remember, and we remember why we do this, but we rise together. It's not but,
Mm-hmm.
and we rise together. And that's what I want everyone to remember is that, yes, there's starships everywhere that are lighting up and looking to make a difference. But in the end, the mission is the same. And collectively, all of us, we're doing it in our own way, in our own gifts and in what we love. And we'll play different characters throughout, this as we're in this human body here. So I just felt called to share that, so thank you for letting me add that.
No, that's beautiful. We're doing it together.
Yeah.
We talk about the new earth. We ain't doing it with just one person. The loneliest person on the new earth. No, that's not how it goes. That's not how it
We
goes.
need everyone.
Exactly. We need everyone. Everyone's participation and showing up, playing full out, and being their authentic and true self. Dolly,
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time you shared with us, and look forward to our next conversation.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed, indeed. Ashe.